Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to ULT San Diego for the Aquarian series this afternoon. Today, the title of the presentation is Patience and Anger, which will be given to us by Victoria Prinz. So, before we begin, I'd like to say our chair for this evening is Judy Salzman. And this from the voice of the silence. For on path forth, the lightest breeze of passion or desire will stir the steady light upon the pure white walls of soul. The smallest wave of longing or regret for Maya's gifts, elusive, along Antascarana, the path that lies between thy spirit and thyself, the highway of sensations, the rude arousers of ahankara. A thought as fleeting as the lightning flash will make thee thy prizes forfeit, the prizes thou hast won. For know that the eternal knows no change. The 8 dire miseries forsake evermore. If not to wisdom, sure thou canst not come, nor yet to liberation, saith the great Lord, the Tathagata of perfection. He who has followed in the footsteps of his predecessors. We now give to you our very own Victoria Prinz.
Yes,
Thank you.
Patience and desire. The very words themselves have a deep resonance. Patience and desire and anger and being and wondering and choosing. What is it that allows us as humans to say, no, I'm going to stop being angry right now? I observe that being angry isn't helpful. A rock, an animal, a non-human entity doesn't have that ability. So because we are human and have that ability, the word patience carries with it a rhythmic aroma of kindness, goodness, caring, choosing not to react. Anger, on the other hand, may get us moving and going, but what is behind it? Is it simply the personality? Is it the lower self wanting to assert itself? How do we observe ourselves? How do we choose? Oh, I've been angry this morning, but I think I need to stop. Maybe I'll try patience. That could be helpful. And what is it about being human that allows us this wonderful ability to change our way, to say, yes, I will be more kind. No, I don't want to hurt anyone else. So thinking about this allows us to, we might say, negotiate becoming more patient and more kind. Once we become aware, consciously aware of the value of it, and think about that we're not just doing it for ourselves, but for interaction with all of humanity. So all of humanity will benefit, and not on a personal basis. Oh, wow, look, she's being so patient, but it will send out a vibration, so to say, into the astral world that may be of necessary use as humans struggle with the here and the now. And having said that, thinking about this has been a very beneficial assignment and I appreciate San Diego ULT. Thank you. You think about the basic necessity and reality and possibility in being human and being able to grow and change and perceive that we don't want to continue on the path that we're on. It's a very good reminder that we are human for a reason, so that we can give and learn. And all the fellow beings on the earth at the same time are also able to do that if they're fortunate enough to be able to pause for a moment and re-examine their behavior. So how do we pause, re-examine, change, move onward, not just for ourselves, but for the good of the whole? And I think HPB herself is very clear in all of her writings that we're not alone, that we're one small, tiny cell of a huge universe of self-conscious beings. And thinking along that line, I think both humbles us, but also allows us to think of our fellow humans as part of that necessary network of self-conscious activity. And thank you, San Diego ULT, for this assignment.
Okay, Judy, I think you're on.
All right. Does anyone, I think Laura has a question or a comment right now. Laura?
Hi, a question, Vicki, about patience. And, it seems that so often as human beings, we're going to be patient. We just say it, we clench our fists, and we're determined to be patient. But it seems that when we look at the virtues of the paramitas in the voice of the silence, that you get this idea that there's something more to patience, and wondering that if it is our true nature to be patient, if that, and that what we are struggling with is something that is covering up our true nature and preventing us from being patient. But the patience is always there within us. So that's my question. What is this? I don't think the great teachers go around thinking about, I'm going to be patient. What is hidden in that word patience? What is concealed?
If I may, I don't think anything's hidden or concealed. And I think the great beings simply are patient by the fact that they've gone through all the different opportunities of all the billions and billions of lifetimes and learned, we might say, an innate kindness. What is Buddhi? What is that unspeakable reality that makes the spiritual being automatically kind, thoughtful, working for the whole, with the capital ALL instead of the me? So there's a process involved, and yes, patience is certainly a necessity, because without it, we don't have that quality of choice. Oh, I'm going to stop that behavior and do something else. And it's a necessary reality as humans grow and learn. And then we also learn to be kind to ourselves. Oh, I should not have behaved that way this morning. Well, next time, let's try not to do that. So it's not just patience toward others. It's, we might say, a universal patience as we understand how difficult life is because of all of our past karma and choices, And that as we move onwards, there's a spiritual patience that's, we might say, the foundation for the great all that is the universe.
Thank you. I think it was very helpful, especially that idea that you said about it's a process rather than seeing patience as a thing in itself, but we see it as a process that we have to go through inwardly and reflect it outwardly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I think Aaron has a question or comment.
Um, well, the thing is, like Christianity puts a lot of emphasis on love. I mean, that's really what all the Gospels are about. But Buddhism puts patience even higher than love and compassion. And if you read Santidhamma, for example, and I think there patience means also not reacting. But then I think there's a story given maybe in Buddhism where a teacher's teaching about compassion, and a number of his students are meant to go to the class, and right outside is someone who's really suffering, and they all ignore him in order to go to the class. And I think there's some message there that if they really slowed down and saw what was right in front of them and had patience, they would see the suffering and act accordingly. You there?
The purpose of life is to learn, to grow, to be able to give to the all, ALL, capitals. And the individual needs to, at some point, let go of its own personal individuality from a selfish perspective. So the need for patience is because over so many lifetimes, we're born, we grow, we do all the things humans do. And along the way, we start examining and saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or, oh, I'm sorry I said that. So, how do we become patient toward ourselves? The fact that we can do that we can change and grow, is a great mystery, and yet it's also one of the great delights of being human. So, there really isn't any one answer, but there's a continuous possibility with a capital P.
Yes, I have a question, comment. Also, the word for patience in the voice of the silence is Shanti, which also means peace. And it seems that those who are not patient are not at peace with something. They get angry easily. And we haven't said much about the opposite of patience, which is really anger, or the opposite of peace. So many human beings are victims of their own anger. And I know in Buddhism that it said the gates of hell are three: ambition, anger, hatred, or desire, anger, covetousness. And I just want to mention that there is an amazing film. It's in Japanese. It's called Gate of Hell, which is very old. I think it's a Kurosawa, but it's got three remarkable actors. And it's a story of a samurai who is very good with a sword, and he rescues a beautiful lady. And then he asks the shogun for her hand in marriage. And the shogun says yes. And then another says, oh no, she's married. You can't have her. And the result is the samurai becomes angry, impatient about this. He's coveting another man's wife. He can't just say, well, I'll always honor this lady. And the whole thing leads to a terrible tragedy. And the lady's husband is really a good Buddhist. And, culturally, he's not really a very good swordsman or anything, but he's very patient about the whole matter. But anyway, the whole thing ends in a tragedy. But it's the first time I saw it, I understood it, that this poor man, this young samurai, just doesn't realize that he's got to be patient and wait for another lady to have her and not go after something that's impossible for him to have. But that often happens with people who are angry. They want what they simply can't have, or they want it much too quickly. And so that seems to be a good source of anger, is lack of peace with oneself. And I wonder if some of you feel that way, that some people feel they must attain something much faster than they're able to. At any rate, if any of you haven't seen this film, I strongly recommend it. It was on Turner Network Television recently, and it's called Gate of Hell. And it's just really a brilliant illustration of that Buddhist teaching that this poor man should fall into, and that leads to a horrible tragedy for 3 people. And the acting is just amazing, really. But at any rate, that seems to be so wise with the gate of hell is desire, anger, covetousness, and I think it's because of lack of peace in the self, lack of identification with a higher nature. I wonder what some of you others think about that. Thank you.
In the Questule of Wisdom, almost the whole book is talking about just what we're talking about. The wise man discerning between the real and the unreal, perceiving the truth through his own awakened vision, knowing himself as the true self, partless illumination, set free from these things, enters into peace in the self. Then are the heart's knots of unwisdom forever loosed, when the vision of the one true self is gained through and vision free from separateness. So having the patience to see that this is a very long journey over many lifetimes, but the fact that it's a possible journey is why beings such as Blavatsky, the great Buddhist teachers that were just spoken of, and many, many other human understandings allow us to develop in ourselves this great, unnameable, unspeakable wisdom.
Yes, thank you. I think Desiree and then Laura again. With Desiree, I see his as he
Hi,
young bud.
I'll try to ask it. This is actually on the same lines as desire, and I'm just referencing out of the almanac here from Plato, where he cites anger differs from desires, and it is sometimes at war with them. I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit.
I said Plato because
I said Plato.
I like Plato. Is that right?
Oh, Laura, did you want to comment on that or something further?
Again, Desiree from Plato.
Yes, it's in our almanac on the second page there for Wednesday the 11th, where he writes or cites, anger differs from desires, and it is sometimes at war with them. And I was wondering, do we ever desire to be angry? I doubt that. But
Why seem angry?
yeah, I said angry.
Why are you saying that?
Yeah, what is anger? Do you know? Where does it come from? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could make distinction here between what is anger and what is desire.
Well,
He's
you know, being
be
a
pointing to
mother,
something mysterious here.
yeah, motherhood gives you a lot of opportunity to explore these two things within yourself, anger and patience, wondering where the both of them come from. And one of the things that we can think of in terms of desire, especially in being a mother, is that we have an expectation of the way things should be. And Victoria brought that out, that, you know, we have to learn to look for the long view of things rather than getting caught up in the temporary short-term view. To keep the long view helps us to be patient, as Victoria pointed out from the crest jewel of wisdom. But I've always found that whenever I've been impatient, it's because I expected things to be a certain way and they weren't that way. So I had an attachment. So then that was easy. You just let go of the attachment, just let go of expecting things to be a certain way, like the Christmas tree not to fall over, or some such thing as that. You just accept these things as par for the course, and then you can have fun with them, rather than getting angry or impatient.
I think that's a great point, that it's the attachment to the outcome of something. Yes. um, that really creates the impatience, which leads to the anger.
Yeah.
And I think so oftentimes we're just angry with ourselves,
Yeah.
impatient with ourselves. And then that lends itself to express itself outwardly. But anyway, yeah, I thought it
It's
was
up
an
with the
interesting.
crest jewel of wisdom as well, that Victoria quoted, because we do become impatient with ourselves. We expect more. And Mr. Judge points that out. He said the reason why is because we're always ahead of ourselves. Our form never expresses the awareness that we've acquired. We have to be patient and wait for the forms to catch up with our awareness.
Yeah.
You know,
Great, Laura. Thank you. Thanks,
I
Victoria.
wonder if Victoria can add to that again.
That idea that was just said of the form catching up is so wonderful and helpful, because our lower self, we might say, our personal form, my opinion, I need to think, on and on and on, that our personality is. How does that, it's necessary for daily life, yet there's that moment of awakening when we examine it and say, no, I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be hurtful. And the ability to do that is a gift of, we might say, the universe. What is it that allows us to do that? And if we don't do it, we can go back and examine our behavior. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I need to change. So there isn't, I think, any answer, but there's a constant reaffirming of what it is to be human. And I think HPB herself did so much writing and so much wanting to get across to us, but the basic underlying reality of what she was pointing to is within us, so that we can grow and change. And want to be different or think, yes, that was the right way to act, or no, I need to not be that way. So being patient with ourselves is necessary too, because if for many lifetimes we've behaved a certain way and then we decide to change, it may take a it may take a while, but that's what we have, infinite time. That's it.
Well, yes, but I was thinking, don't you people think that desire and anger are very much connected? We get angry, our kama manas, our lower self, gets angry. It has this emotion inherent in it. If we don't get what we want and we're impatient, and so we allow this to take us over. And of course, we know that anger can lead to things like fights, verbally and physically. It can lead to terrible things. And this is why I think Thomas Jefferson said, when angry, count to 10, and when very angry, count to 100. Because apparently, in the development of this country, there were many arguments in the Continental Congress. From the people in Virginia differed a lot from the people in Massachusetts and New York. And of course, there was probably a lot of anger, and Jefferson was trying to control his. Although I don't know if everyone was as controlled.
I
But
agree with you, Judy, because when you take breath, count to 1 to 10, you connect them with the air, with the principle of breath, and breath is our center. It will give us. Or when somebody attack you and you don't respond, you are controlling. So it's sometimes action reaction. If you are the reactive type of mind, you're going to get angry and then you start a fight. But if you control yourself, you don't let anybody to alter you. There was a story about this a great master, and there was this angry man that came to him and started insulting him and called him fraud and all kind of things. But he stayed very center, and he asked him a question. He said, when somebody give you a gift, that gift belong to who? And the person say, to the person I'm giving it to him. And he say, no, to you, and sort of your anger. So it is up to us to take the gift or just not accepting it. And by not accepting it, you stay balanced and you stay calm. And I think the other thing that comes to mind is also, like Shakespeare said, gently to hear, kindly to judge. If we're gentle in what people are saying, that I think also help us to be patient and then less judgmental, because many times people, they too fast in making an accusation or judgment or whatever, and that provoke also that disequilibrium of peace or harmony. But they're very interesting comments. Thank you very much, Vicky and everybody.
yes, Victoria, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, in Patanjali's Yoga Aphorisms, number 41, the mind that has been so trained that the ordinary modifications of its action are not present, but only those which occur upon the conscious taking up of an object for contemplation, is changed into the likeness of that which is pondered upon, and enters into full comprehension of the being thereof. This change of the mind into the likeness of what is pondered upon is technically called the argumentative condition, when there is any mixing up of the title of the thing, the significance and application of that title, and the abstract knowledge of qualities and elements of the thing per se. On the disappearance from the plane of contemplation of the title and significance of object selected for meditation, when the abstract thing itself, free from the distinction by designation, is presented to the mind only as an entity. That is what is called the non-argumentative condition of meditation. The argumentative and non-argumentative conditions of the mind, described in the preceding two aphorisms, also obtain when the object selected for meditation is subtle or of a higher nature than sensuous objects. That meditation, which has a subtle object in view, ends with the indissoluble element called primordial matter. So it's a much, let's see, it's not difficult, but there's a
Master.
Yes, Laura, did you?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking in terms of that idea. I always tried to understand the argumentative and the non-argumentative, and wondered if it had anything to do with, what was I going to say about that? The idea that when you work to be patient, as what Victoria was pointing out to us, oh, she's back again, that's wonderful. When we work towards that patience, that we discover a position within ourself. We might say the patience becomes like a fulcrum that lifts us from the desire kama mind into the higher mind. And we discover a truer position within ourselves. And I wondered if that had to do with the argumentative and the non-argumentative position that Patanjali's talks about.
Well, yes, it really might. At least I think arguments have destroyed marriages, relationships, friendships, meetings. They have destroyed so much, and if people would realize that they would just try to understand the other person instead of getting into an argument or getting angry without being reflective, then things would be a lot better. But of course, the kama manas is still so very much in dominance with so many people, and they haven't listened to Patanjali. But I think if we could have more just inner peace with ourselves, then we wouldn't be like this. But I know when I was in my 20s, for example, I was very impatient because I didn't have a PhD yet. And I don't know why I couldn't have been more patient with myself, because I did eventually get one. But I mean, I thought for a while that I was some sort of a failure, that I was 28 years old and still didn't have one of those doctorates. And I finally got one. But, this lack of peace would lead me to be, sometimes I would be angry at some of the faculty who were denying me and such. I finally switched faculties, and that worked. But
so maybe a question then for Victoria would be, what do we mean by argumentative and non-argumentative according to Patanjali's or Patanjali? And
yes,
you have to unmute, Victoria.
Yeah, that's a very important question.
I don't know if anyone can unmute her, or so that we can hear her answer.
I could try. I can do that. I'm gonna try.
I've asked her to unmute herself.
Yes. Well, she might be having trouble doing that too. Technology. But yes, what is, maybe someone else could answer that question. What does Patanjali mean by argumentative and non-argumentative?
Could I venture a response to that? This is John Powers.
If you, yes, John.
I think it potentially doesn't mean, in the use of the terms argumentative and non-argumentative, what we think of as argumentation or arguments between people. What he's really referring to is a position of intention or of will and of thought that needs to be supported by arguments. And the non-argumentative, I believe, is an affirmation which requires no argumentation. It's self-evidently true. And for example, the affirmation of the immortality of the soul, you can be in a position where you have to advance arguments in favor of that proposition. But there's another frame of mind in which one sees the truth directly, and it requires no supports from argumentation. So I think that's kind of what he's getting at in that distinction.
Okay, you mean the soul? Yes, go ahead. I think there's the phrase from Plato, the soul is the perceiver, it looks directly upon ideas.
Yes, that would be a good example, Judy.
Okay.
Suggestion for Victoria, just a moment, Monica, suggestion. Victoria, Truth has indicated that if you leave the meeting and come back in, you that you will be able to unmute the mic. It will unmute automatically. But yeah, Judy, Monica, I think, has a question.
Well, I two things. One is that there are items in the chat that I don't know why I'm not seeing it here. Oh, here they go.
There you go.
Okay. So I don't know. I can't get to the top of it, but
there you go.
Maluka says here, I offer, this is a quote from the Mahatma letters, I offer it to you, whose inner self reconciles me to the outer man who but too often forgets that great man is he who is strongest in the exercise of patience. That's lovely. Thank you, Maluka. Let's see. Truth put something in, put in the, there was talk about the Gate of Hell and the film that I think, Laura, was that you that spoke about that film?
Oh,
no,
Judy.
it was Judy, I'm sorry. So if anyone is interested in finding that, you can find it on Wikipedia. And Truth put that in there for us. Sean says namaskaram, thank you. And
yeah, that's a wonderful quotation.
Yes, it is beautiful. And I think that's, wait a minute. Truth, you put here the summit of the minds, the influential contributions of Theosophy and HPB in celebration. This is for the upcoming event on June 14th. So I won't go into
Monica,
that,
could
right?
you tell people in order how to log on? Just log on to the same link that they did for this meeting.
Oh, okay, for this event on the 14th of June?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing in there that really tells how to do it.
Okay.
But
Just in case everybody did not hear, we talked about how on June 14th, in the morning hours, somewhere around 10 o'clock, it's the anniversary of the Theosophical movement is going to take place at the Kamara Center. And we spoke of it, but there's no place that says how you enter into. So use the same link that you have with us, and you'll be able to
for this meeting.
For this meeting,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to log on. So just wanted to say that. And I had a question, Victoria, that is about this whole thing of anger. I think we all come into an incarnation with a tendency. And if a person has a tendency toward anger, and that's a range from just expressing oneself from that tone, or to have certain things that activate some level of anger in you. And so my question is, although we just heard about meditation, and obviously that's a boon to begin to dissipate such a thing as anger. But my question is about the possibility of, maybe using both meditation, but also making a vow. If a person makes a vow to eradicate anger, something they know that they have an issue with, how do we go about that? I mean, it's one thing to say I want to make a vow, but how do we connect the lower mind with the higher mind in making that effort? What's in between there? We've got to say something besides, okay, I'm going to vow that next time I won't respond in this way. But given that we're probably conditioned in certain ways, it would come up and we forgot we even made the vow. So I guess what I'm asking is, how do we strengthen such a thing? And do you think that eventually it would dissipate and finally die out? That kind of a response.
Well, that's a great question. Anyone want to answer that?
I have something
A
for that.
great question. One of the thoughts that comes to mind in that is that, oh gosh, yeah, so maybe someone else could jump in. I see you're there, Jonathan. My thought just vanished. I have to be patient.
I have a quick filler thought while you're thinking of your main thought. Okay, there's something in the almanac for Sunday, tomorrow, and Judge, he says, okay, because if you're going to eradicate something, right, that's kind of a negative vow. So we're kind of encouraged to think of something positive. So two things. One is Judge always talked about a calm reliance on the law, and that might, if a person can kind of lean into the law and rely on it and kind of know that it's going to be okay, something like that. But then here's something from Judge. He says, try for patience in all the very smallest things of life every day, and you will find it growing very soon. So if a person is going to make a vow or a resolve, person might say, well, let me just try it on the small things, right? And just kind of get used to small patience things before when a person tries to take on some kind of big cosmic thing. That's just a thought. So that's my filler thought.
And yeah, but it's when we make a vow, it's easy to know, and it's easy but it's hard to remember when we are in the midst of the karmic past or the karmic events. Somehow we can forget that vow. and so it takes repetition, it takes practice, it's as Victoria indicated, it's a process of continually remembering the vow, getting involved in the karmic event, forgetting it, then remembering it again. And each time I think we do that, as Mr. Judge says, it does change things. It does get easier. We get to the point where we see the impatience or the anger coming towards us, and we can stop it dead in its tracks. But it takes that repetition and that practice in order to see it coming through the karmic events that are occurring during the day. But David and Ken have their hand up, Judy.
Yes, I haven't seen their hand, but go ahead, David.
Okay. A little twist on patience. Excuse me, maybe for a second. Are there things in life that we should not be patient with?
Sometimes as a parent, one pretends to be impatient towards things that one should not have to be patient about. It's kind of interesting. It's like you put on a role, even being angry. You're not really feeling anger, but you are going to play the role of it to maybe make a point about something, as a parent. But you're not. Yeah, I think another student mentioned that before, that there's, you don't need to get angry, but sometimes you might use that emotion from a higher point of view to get your point across. David, what do we think?
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit all of a sudden now. Should we be patient when we see injustice in the world? In other words, it's not our own personal feeling, our emotions. We're angry, but when we see something that really needs calling out, sometimes we let things slide. That doesn't really seem to be a positive expression of patience. Anyway, just taking it out of the personal a little bit. That's what I was trying to do. We think of patience, how we're feeling our emotions, but some things need to be acted on maybe quickly. That's not necessarily impatience, but it's necessary.
That's great, David. I think that's meeting the moment. I think that's sometimes called to defend or protect someone from harm in one way, or to not allow gossip or bad speech about someone in your presence. I think to meet that, and you don't even have to be angry, but it would seem that you have to be immediate about it and put an end to it. So I think that's patience is not really where that belongs, I would think. So I think that's a good point you're making.
And wouldn't an example of that be, you call it righteous indignation? A lot of the, when injustice, I think but then it could be, I'm thinking about the Israeli-Palestinian issue, the justice, the anger, I mean, the truth is on both sides to some extent. So intergenerational anger, or all of that. It is the personal, but how to address that, and when you're a part of the whole. Can you remain silent? Or even in an abusive relationship, should you have patience when anger is projected towards you?
Did
Right.
everybody hear Did everybody hear Brenda's question? Judy?
Yes.
Yes, like
Yeah, we did. What do you think, Judy?
well, there's several things I think, although I'm not sure I heard everything. But one thing I learned from a Zen master about patience is one, not speaking of the faults of others, because it could just raise your blood pressure and you can get angry. You know, if somebody's done something to you that makes you mad. And the other thing is, the Zen master taught me, when thinking of people, think of a dear friend, a neutral person, an unpleasant person, and an enemy, and think, may he, she be free from anger and hatred. May he, she be free from mental suffering. May he, she be free from physical suffering. And may he, she be happy and good health. And I find this works. And it makes me think, who really is an enemy? And why am I mad at this person? I don't know what motivated them to do what they did. And when I think of great souls like H.P. Blavatsky, she had so much reason to be angry at people who vilified her, lied about her, tried to destroy her work, and were very mean to her, but she never called anybody anything more than a fool and a flapdoodle. And you think of Nelson Mandela. I went to the prison where he was for 27 years, confined in a small cell, and he broke up rocks during the day, did meaningless work, and at night he studied South African law, standing at a desk. And he had great patience. And he could have declared a bloodbath, but instead he declared forgiveness. So are there other
Hand up. Yeah,
comments?
Ken has his hand up and David still has his hand up.
Dr. Ken say something?
Go on.
Okay. Judy, I just wanted to say that Truth has something in the chat. Do you want to read it, or would you have me read it? Whatever you think is best.
Sure, I could read it.
Okay, Truth.
No, I was just, in some ways, patience is akin to mental posture. And so it's like maintaining a resolve and not necessarily a course of action, but what's involved in one's course of action. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, a justice too long delayed is justice denied. So we can see them dragging out certain things like the genocide which is occurring in Gaza, which by experts is clearly meeting the criteria of a genocide. But you know, being patient with something like that doesn't mean that you agree with what's happening, but that you maintain your resolve to try to do what you can to stop it while it's happening.
Yes, that's certainly. Yeah. Yeah, Ken, did you want to go ahead?
Yes. So this whole concept of the talk today about patience and anger is really quite fascinating to me. You know, professionally, as many of you already know, I have been a practicing clinical psychiatrist, and before that was a neuroscience researcher at the National Institute of Mental Health. And so the whole concept of emotions, you know, from the Western materialistic perspective, is very clockwork. It's very mechanistic. And people have been, you know, scientists have been trying to say, oh, it's connected to the brain, the central nervous system, and neural pathways, and you know, neurotransmitters and hormones and that sort of thing. It's a very mechanistic perspective on all of our emotions, and you know, attaching things like oxytocin to, you know, maternal love and attachment, or dopamine to experiencing pleasure, or some of the other catecholamines to anger. And certainly, in that Western physical perspective, there's the idea that if someone is intractably rageful, in psychiatry and a little bit of psychosurgery, they will practice the destroying part of the amygdala, which is part of the limbic system where we have our emotions. That's on the one perspective. On our theosophical perspective, however, we have this, septenary nature, and the Hindus have their 5 koshas. So we have a whole different perspective on the structure of humans and where we came from. Namely, that we did not arise from lower animal forms and evolved up to be humans, but actually are descended from spiritual beings and raised from the Atma and something much more eternal. And so I'm thinking that given that theosophical perspective, that we're still going to be operating within our physical body while we're in the world, while we're in our manifested, materialized form, and that the whole spectrum of emotions from love and attachment and anger are going to be part of the vehicle. Using that analogy of our vesture, our vehicle, my favorite analogy is like the driver of a car, whereas our upper monastic sense is the driver, and the car is the vehicle that we're operating in. Or using the Indian version, you might say the elephant is the lower quaternary, this gigantic elephant that's moving us around, and the elephant rider is this little person on top. That would be the force of our higher monastic buddhimanas. So we have to deal with that. And I'm thinking that we don't want to go so extreme as ablating the amygdala or destroying our emotions altogether, but to allow ourselves, so this is my opinion on part of the solution, allow ourselves to still experience our humanness while we're in these physical bodies and make a really clear distinction between the feelings and the emotions on the one hand. And so many people in my psychiatric practice had trouble identifying a feeling. And like basic emotions like mad, sad, glad, afraid, ashamed, hurt. And I think the mad one is that whole spectrum of annoyance, being peeved, being pissed off, and then getting to rage, and then at the far end, rageful. And so there's a whole spectrum from of what we're calling anger, or one of the 7 deadly sins. So I think that will still be a part of our existence. And then the question is, or part of the solution, in my opinion, is to say, okay, we can draw this distinction between our actions and those feelings and still allow ourselves to be human in that regard. And in terms of what to do about these actions, I think one of the other virtues that Mahatma Gandhi, discussed as an attorney in South Africa was the ahimsa, the nonviolence. And so it may be possible through, and again, this is a challenge, through nonviolent means to eradicate some other behavior. And I'm not sure what that is, really. Among the American transcendentalists, at one point, who was the author? Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau was in jail because he refused to pay taxes because America was fighting a war with Libya, and he did not want his tax dollars to go to the war. And indeed, just about 25 years ago, we spent $1,000 per second on the war on terror. And, people still paid their taxes. And we taxpayers spent $1,000 per second. So one nonviolent methodology would be to maybe stop paying our taxes, to stop war efforts. But it's a complex thing, and I don't know if anyone has any responses to that analysis about the Western physical mechanistic perspective on feelings and behaviors versus our theosophical perspective and Mahatma Gandhi's solution. Thank you.
I have a question. Lovely what you shared just now. I love it. But one of the things that struck me is that you said that they used to remove your part of your liver. Is that what you said?
Oh, it's a part of the brain in the limbic system, deep in our brain, right above the brainstem, called the limbic system, and it's a little organ called the amygdala, and it's really a complicated little organ. It has a bunch of different parts to it, but it's one part of our central nervous system brain. And it's thought to have a lot to do with anger and rage reactions, which should be part of the the lower quaternary animal-like, monastic part of us.
So amygdala in Spanish had to do with your throat, right? Amygdala?
Has to do-
Tonsil, you would call it tonsils, right? In English?
Has to do with what?
Amygdalas is in Spanish, amygdala, it has to do tonsils, right? Your tonsils? Is that the same thing?
No, it's not in your throat. It's a little part of your brain that
Different kind of amygdalas, not the one that you say amygdala in Spanish. Okay, no, because I was thinking when they remove certain parts of your body, you lose something that is special and very essential to your body. That's why a lot of people don't believe in surgery, because they interrupt things and they actually kill you faster. There's certain thing in the body that is to filter poison or cleansing the body. And the best way to heal a lot of these things is through diet. Simple as that. Diet, and of course, what you were saying, the emotions and the anger, it does affect your liver and different part of your body. That's for sure. Cancer is one of the things that people should explore more about. Why so many people get cancer? I mean, related to not just the physical, what you do and what you eat and when you drink and what you smoke, but I think it had to do with that aspect, not being in control of the anger.
Yes, yes. And, part of the solution, I think, from our theosophical perspective is to proceed with that obligatory pilgrimage that HPB talks about and recommends for us, which is to move our center of gravity from our kama manas mind to our buddhi manas mind by these different practices of concentration and meditation and contemplation. We can build that skill and then focus on these higher ethical principles. And that would still allow us to be in our body and yet operate and act. And, William Quan Judge talks about, theosophy in daily life, just in our moment-to-moment life, we can then do our actions from a higher perspective while we're, even though still in our physical bodies. And I think, the primitive psychiatrists 110 years ago were still doing, frontal lobotomies. And so we don't try to do that anymore. I think psychosurgery is limited, but there are a few cases. And then in severe epilepsy, there was still practice cutting the corpus callosum to reduce the connection between the right and the left hemisphere. And so I think you're right, though, Maluka, that using lifestyle techniques and skill building can be an alternative to even many of the psychiatric medications, which I think are way overused and could be much diminished because they all have side effects, by diet, the microbiome, and then these meditational skill practices, which I think are so important. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That really gives us a lot to think about. Victoria, do you have anything more to add to what you said? There are also some wonderful chats that we could look at, presented by Truth. Did you want to read the chats, Truth?
Yes, I found this interesting. I came across it this last week, the relationship between the turtle shell and the calendar. And this website, CherokeeMuseums.org, it has a quote, which I think has to do with patience, because it has a day which is has to do with forgiveness and starting anew. The calendar of the turtle's back equals 364 days. The Cherokee and many other tribes have 365 days in their year. The extra day is the green corn day, which is usually in midsummer when the corn crop is new and holds the promise of a good harvest. On this day, all offenses are forgiven and great feasts are prepared and eaten. This is the day that everything starts anew.
Well, that's great to be able to start anew. I think Jonathan perhaps
Oh,
some closing.
okay. Yeah, I just had a thought that would kind of would follow through on what Ken was talking about with the amygdala, and that I think you said it's possible to actually do damage to it. Is that what you?
Oh yeah, they'll surgically cut it for very angry, violent people.
Oh, so there is something in the article from Judge called "The Culture of Concentration," where he talks about different emotional states of mind that we get ourselves into that are, well, he's saying that in the spiritual path, we're somewhat working on the development of a permanent astral, and that there's something that we're developing in our vestures are changing, and they're becoming more coherent, you could say. And so it's not just the normal astral that's kind of passive and wishy-washy, but the person is developing something on the path of a certain, you could call it coherence and integrity in the astral, and that there are different emotions. He mentions 4 of them. I'm going to try and remember what they all are. Anger is definitely one of them. I thought envy was one, and fear is one of them. Maybe jealousy, but I don't. Anyway, I'm vague on those. But the anger, he says, different ones are bad for the development of the more coherent astral. Like I think jealousy or envy is corrosive. For example, envy is explosive, and so I think when we get angry, we can feel something explode, and it takes days to recover. Let alone the poor people that we got angry at. But it takes, it's just like, and I think that initial reading about the 3 prizes forfeit is there's kind of a lot at stake, and so I would think that righteous indignation and so forth would be. Well, I liked what Monica said about putting an immediate stop to something, but that's just being prepared. And
Yes.
and
And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it in a state of anger either.
right. It just means that you're not going to tolerate slander about anybody, really,
Right.
or just for example.
Mhm.
But anyway, these are just some thoughts. And I think that our time is getting close to an end. Do you have any thoughts, Judy, that you would like to wrap up things with?
Well, I simply like to say I've learned a great deal from all of you about anger and patience, and I guess we all need to be more patient. And when you think of it as the virtue of shanti, that also means peace. So I think we all are at peace with ourselves and happy with where we are and what we're doing. We're much less likely to get angry about what anyone else is doing. At least I've learned that and many other things from you people today. So thank you very much. And thanks to Victoria for her initial comments and presenting these ideas.
Thank you all very much, and thanks for coming. We do have just a couple of announcements. So next week in the morning on the West Coast at 10 o'clock, so it'll be 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast, the Summit of the Minds thing about the influence of HPB. It's celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Theosophical Movement. And like I say, you just go to this email that you just now opened to get into this meeting, and you hit the link just like you did to get in this meeting, and all of a sudden you'll be in that meeting. And then the other announcement would be the topic for next week. Is it impermeability? Is that right? Do I got it right?
Yeah, impermeability.
Impermeability.
Permeability, yes.
And it might be Laura doing it, but I won't tell anybody. So okay. Okay.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Laura. Everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you, everybody. And we see you next week.
See you next week.
Take care.
Namaste.
You've heard-
Namaste.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.